So please welcome to the stage the one and only John Fogerty. It helps to have the best songs ever made. But let me ask you, what do you think went so right with this record? And did it have anything to do with this family band that you have created?
Well, it would probably take a long answer, and I'm famous for long answers, so I'll try not to go there. Obviously, it was a process. I mean, when Julie first was talking about suggesting maybe doing something like this, I was a little bit lukewarm about it. And then I started, and, like things go, I just kind of was taking a few baby steps in, thinking I was doing a good job. I think in the back of my mind, here's a picture I've tried to make. I thought I would be able to just walk in kind of like my vision of Frank Sinatra going in. Everything's all ready. And of course, the king walks in and he opens his mouth and it's amazing. But somebody like Nelson Riddle was back there doing all the work for all the musicians. And Frank comes in, he's amazing for 30 minutes and he's done and he leaves, in a chauffeured limo or something. And that's that. I was hoping I would get to do that. I don't know about the Nelson Riddle part, but who's great. But it turned out I had to get much more involved. I think Julie knew that all along. I didn't, but I guess just about everything I've ever been involved in, where it was, my name on the door, you might say, I sort of at some point realized, oh gosh, this isn't good enough. And then that's when you really get involved. You go, I got to fix this and I got to fix that. So I did make a long answer, didn't I? And that was the part of having my family around, especially my sons, Shane and Tyler. Musically, we had to roll up our sleeves and, just look at everything really closely and try to emulate what we were hearing. And that meant all things. Sonically, getting the instrument to be exact or as close as we could, meaning getting the same guitar and getting the tone right and all that. And then way back there lurking, laughing at you, getting the performance to be the same as it was 50-something years ago. And that's really a tricky thing.
Well, beyond tricky, there is literally, I cannot think of anyone who's ever done it or could do it as well. And you think maybe there's some studio trickery, and then later tonight you will say, oh my God, he's singing better than ever. And I wonder about that because it strikes me that as a young man, you sang like an old man. You sang, as a young man from Northern California, you sang like an old man born on the bayou. And
because I knew that someday I'd be sitting here next to you and I'd be 80 years old.
But part of making this record is a reminder that I think, you get some of the credit you deserve for being one of the greatest few songwriters in history. As a producer, people might not realize, because you don't always grab credit like some other people do, you produced all these records, for so many years.
And arranged them.
And arranged.
That means I came up with all the musical parts that the other people played.
And speaking of what you did in terms of arrangements and the parts played, Julie told me you gave a guitar to Shane at one point for making this record. Is that right? And how did that pay dividends for you?
Well, in my shows, my live shows, I tell a story about my Acme guitar. And let me just say that that's a Rickenbacker that I bought in the first week of 1969. And then I made a bunch of modifications to the guitar. The most important thing was I put a humbucker pickup off of a Les Paul guitar in the bridge position on this Rickenbacker. Anyhow, and then used that guitar on almost everything that wasn't a Proud Mary type song. And so that Acme, well, I painted Acme on the headstock where it used to say Rickenbacker. And so I played that guitar on Green River, up around the bend, down on the corner. Gosh, there was just so many. And then after things went south about 1972, the band had broken up and all that, I gave the guitar away. And I didn't see that guitar for a long, long, long time. A few years ago, you may have heard about me getting my long-lost guitar back. Basically, that was Julie went out into the world and found, Julie's from the Midwest. She's from Indiana. Probably not where they make that fine Italian sports car. But anyway, she's from Indiana. She found my guitar in Ohio and brought it home. This was really only about 6-7 years ago. So I now had Acme after a life of not having that same guitar that I also played at Woodstock, by the way. I now
I'm not familiar with that show. What was that?
There you go. Weren't you there? I saw you there.
No, I was doing bar mitzvah lessons. I missed it.
So I had Acme in my possession, and that was one of the wonderful parts of getting to do these songs again. I had some of the original, the actual ingredients that were used. And so for the song Up Around the Bend, my son Shane has been playing the lick from that song in our live shows for years and years. I know he played it at Albert Hall when I performed there years ago, and he might have been about 12 or 13 years old at the time, and it was pretty good then. So we got to use that guitar on this record, although it was Shane playing it now.
And for anyone who hasn't seen, which I'm sure is very few of you, John and the band in recent years, I know that 10 years ago, almost exactly to the day, we were downstairs doing an event inside the GRAMMY Museum. I think that was one of the very early times that you had Tyler and Shane in the band. And I remember thinking, wow, they're great. But what's happened in the last, decade is just remarkable. I guess another remarkable thing about the last 10 years is Julie didn't just get you back a guitar, she helped you get back your songs. And I wonder, that's worth applause.
Yeah.
Is that something you thought possible, and how meaningful has it been in your life?
Almost the whole thing, as far as music and my career. I'll try and say it really quickly. I was a little boy, fell in love with music. I realized that that's what I wanted to do. I really enjoyed music as a kid growing up, and of course began to think about, well, maybe I might get to have a career or something. You don't really know if you're going to be any good. You're looking up there and you go, well, of course everybody thinks they're going to be good, and I just kind of realized that you don't really know when you're little, you don't know how things will turn out. And so to then get up, grown up, be able to write songs and have all this wonderful stuff happen, and then like that, have it taken away. I think you all know my legal trials with Saul's Ants and Fantasy, so I won't regurgitate all that stuff.
You've never mentioned it. No.
So, it was just heartbreaking to me. It was the thing in life that I loved so much to do, and that gave me so much joy. And so for years and years, that was all, I finally kind of stumbled my way back onto a stage, but never owned my songs. And that was always this kind of ghostly quest. Every morning I'd open my eyes and go, oh yeah, I got to go out and figure out how to try and get my songs back. So it was, it was like a big weight, an anvil over my head, because obviously I felt duty bound to, I'd been, snookered, and I wanted to get my songs back. Is that a legal term? Yeah. But it went on for so long, and so many people said, come on, John, forget about it. you kind of got used to hearing that and feeling that way. So Julie, truly getting these songs back, I mean, it's miraculous to me. And I think now I'm actually, yeah, come on, give my dear bride a big hand. It's literally something that I hoped and dreamed would happen, but I really kind of fatalistically thought wasn't going to happen. And now that she's done it, I mean, this is the Julie is she's a manifester. She's just amazing. She's able to move elements of the universe that other people say are immovable. And I don't know how she did that, because even now it's starting to get kind of musty and in the rear view mirror, and I'm like, boy, did this really happen? How did that happen? But it did happen, and I'm overjoyed about it.
Yeah, thank God it happened. I do think about something Bob Dylan, another good songwriter, very promising songwriter.
I like him.
Yeah, at the Palomino Club. Anyone here ever get a chance to go to the great Palomino Club? Can you tell the nice people what Bob Dylan told you at the Palomino Club?
Sure. I was having a drink just like this. Sorry, I'm just going to take a second. Actually, the point I think of that night was I wasn't having a drink, but some other people were.
It was a pretty good crowd, right? It was,
Yep. I had gone there to see Taj Mahal, who I love, and sat down, and then at some point I heard a rumor that George Harrison was there, but he was kind of in his cloakroom. So I went in and talked to George a little bit. That was really fun. Then I went back and I sat down. Then I heard a rumor that Bob Dylan was somewhere in the room, right? I didn't know until much later that actually Bob and George were really tight. They were great friends, and they had arrived together. Anyhow, so Taj goes on a ways playing, and then he does a little figure, dee 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 on his guitar, and I'm going, whoa, he knows, right? Next thing I see is George is up on stage playing with Taj, and then Bob gets called up there, and now I'm going, I mean, I'm usually kind of shy, but for some reason, I said, man, I hope they have another guitar. Please call me up there. I just wanted to get up there. Well, it just looked historic and a lot of fun. Got up and we were playing. We probably played Blue Suede Shoes or something. I don't know. Just, rock and roll stuff. And then the audience started asking people to do their songs. And somebody, I'm not senile. I didn't even remember then. Or maybe I'm senile, but I didn't remember then. Bob played something of his, and as we sit here, I can't tell you what it was. And then everybody looked at George, and George ripped into Honey Don't, which his choice of playing something of George, and it was amazing. It was so great. And then the crowd started, John, come on, play Proud Mary, come on. And this was during the time I was sworn off playing my own songs from the Creedence days because of legal and emotional entanglements. Anyway, I'm really being kind of let's say stubborn about it. There's probably worse words looking back, but suddenly Bob Dylan, who's right here in my vision, he turns to me and he goes, John, if you don't play Proud Mary, everybody's going to think it's a Tina Turner song. And I looked at him, and by God, I played Proud Mary for sure. Yep. Irrefutable.
Very wise man. I like his approach.
Yeah.
Revisiting these songs on this record, is there a tie to the getting back the songs that this is really just a grand restatement of everything that makes you one of the most important artists of our times? Was having the songs to get them back, was that part of the reason we get John's version, which, you and Taylor have versions now?
Well, I actually lobbied the label, the record label. I wanted to call it Taylor's version. I just figured that was sort of a, what do you call it, a record company move, that would probably make the visibility a lot.
And then you would follow with Life of a
They,
Showboy.
they talked me out of it. Yeah. I think, well, the reason it's called John's version, in their logic, there are, because of the internet, everybody can post everything. I mean, of course, I did, let's say, Proud Mary with Creedence Clearwater Revival, and at some point, I did actually an official album, I believe, on Concord, matter of fact, and redid that song maybe in a live setting. But after that, there's been a whole bunch of concerts I've done, and the footage of that is online, of course. And so there's, I don't know, hundreds of versions of John singing Proud Mary. So they came up with the words John's version so that when you click on, let's say, Spotify, to differentiate from all those others, the one that's on this album, Legacy, says John's version.
And speaking of the streaming world, what's it feel like to have a song? I think one of the most amazing, or maybe the most amazing, is Have You Ever Seen the Rain? Is like billions of streams, and young people. This is not, this is in recent history, and I think the studies are tons of young people have discovered all of your songs, but particularly a song like that. What's it mean to you to have Taylor's generation and younger discovering, streaming, and making these songs the kind of standards they've always, proving what standards they are?
I just feel completely blessed by all of this. I thought "Have You Ever Seen the Rain" was a pretty good song 50 years ago, right? And
They think it's more than adequate. They think they can do.
well, I mean, it's been around, and it's kind of like the Statue of Liberty. I've been staring at it for a long time. But suddenly in the world of streaming, it kind of took off. I don't mean, it was there as the streaming thing evolved, and the song, my early songs just kept showing up, and suddenly it just seems like in the last 4 or 5 years it, really did something. The fact taken, for exactly what you said, that denotes that young people, see, old codgers like me don't stream, they say. I don't know, either we're too blind or we don't care. I don't know.
Or both.
But I don't think that's true because I stream all the time. But anyway, it denotes that young people are driving those numbers, I suppose. And more than the fact that there are over 2 billion streams of a song I wrote, I think is the fact that it's young people who didn't see it, the first time around when the band was a big deal and on television and all that. It's now a moldy oldie, but the music lives on.
And the thing is, they are not moldy oldies. There are songs that get moldy and oldie. Your songs, I had the experience of when I gave the speech in Nashville, they said you have 5 minutes to sum up John Fogerty's career as best you can. And I was like, that's impossible. And then I thought, but think about what John Fogerty did in 2 minutes and 8 seconds, 2 minutes and 14 seconds. You look at those records, and they are the most timeless expressions. And actually, when you talk about, like, Have You Ever Seen the Rain or Who'll Stop the Rain, even those words, I think the songs are elemental. They, literally you're writing about, the elements, but they are, and I guess the most ultimate example, which we should talk about, Proud Mary, I've always said, I've never run into anyone who thinks anyone on earth wrote that song. That song seems like it's always been here, always will be here. It seems so. How dare you take credit for this song?
I'm really proud of Proud Mary. There's a whole long story. I won't tell the long story, but the quicker, more instant version of it is I had just discovered my honorable discharge from the Army. It was somewhere in the middle of summer of 1968, which of course is the middle of the Vietnam War. And I was really happy standing there with my honorable discharge. And I literally, well, first I turned a little cartwheel on the little patch of grass they had in front of my apartment house, then ran in the house, picked up the Rickenbacker, and started strumming these chords. And the first words out of my mouth were, left a good job in the city, working for the man every night and day. Well, that was the Army. I mean, that was what I was talking about. And quickly got into a song that seemed to have something to do with a river and water. And eventually there was this chorus I'm singing, rolling, rolling, rolling on the river. And I'm feeling really, really supercharged, I guess. Although young people, tend to do that all the time. It's kind of a normal state, I guess. But at that moment of the rolling, rolling on the river, I said, God, what is this thing about? Because I was really liking it. I went to this notebook that I'd only been keeping for a few months. It was the first notebook I ever had, my first attempt at being organized. And opened the book, and of course the very first line, the first entry in the book that I had made back in, I think, October of the year before, was the word Proud Mary. And I never knew what that meant. I had continued to fill in the pages, and now when I looked at Proud Mary, I said, whoa, that's the name of a boat. Proud Mary's a riverboat. That's what this song's about. And so I was off, who writes a song about a boat? Come on. But the point to what you asked is within about an hour, maybe a few minutes less, I'm sitting there with a whole sheet of paper. I've got a completed song, Proud Mary. And I really am looking at this going, John, you've written a classic song. Now, I'd never written a really good song before. I've been writing songs since I was 8 years old. Some were better, some were worse, but and I had, starting with Stephen Foster, many songwriters that I idolized that, wow, I wonder what that must feel like to be Irving Berlin, or to be the Lieber and Stoller, or to be Bob Dylan. What is that like to be able to make those songs that those guys make? And of course, I dreamed about it. Here I was now looking at this piece of paper that, you've done it, John. You've gone there. And it was such an amazing feeling without any feedback from anyone. I realized I had finally in my life, of all those attempts, had written a really great song, like you say, that was from the earth. The other thing I knew, even right at that moment, I said, and I'm the only person in the whole world that knows this. It was amazing to realize I didn't need somebody to tell me it was great. I knew it was great.
It's good to know when you write Proud Mary, you felt it.
Yep.
And by the way,
and let me say before I get too long-winded and I forget about everything, I'm so glad you're all here. I just want you all to know I love you, all of you. I'm very appreciative of the fans that have listened to my songs and carried them in their heart, and the fact that you would come out on a Tuesday night and sit on a roof somewhere in L.A. And
although it's a hell of a nice roof.
I'm just dumbfounded and very appreciative of you being there. So thank you very much. I appreciate you.
And to show you how appreciative John is, I have to tell you, the fact that when I came here early this afternoon, that he was up here doing a full sound check with his amazing band. Amazing band. And I have to let you know that, I just look back and I'm like, that couldn't be his front of house guy is the most overqualified front of house guy in history. One of the greatest, soundmen, producers, mixers, anything. Bob Clearmountain will be doing the sound here. So that's how John Fogerty will take care of you. I wanted to ask, I had the thought the other day because I went to a record store in town, I'll say it, Freak Beat Records. They asked me what I was doing this week, and I probably name dropped the fact that I was talking to John Fogerty. It turned out Shane Fogerty was right behind me, wondering who the old man with the puppy was who was talking about his dad. Uh, but the record I bought I was buying a copy because I couldn't find my vinyl copy of Centerfield. But it made me think that when I first discovered you with Centerfield, and I thought, it is amazing that you defy time. This legacy album is a time-defying thing. It shouldn't be possible, and yet it's abundantly clear you've done it. And also, what seems crazy to me is, at the time of Centerfield, you sort of forced your way back into the business a little with mixed emotions, and you didn't want to play your old songs, and you did not seem like a happy man. And I met you a little after that, and I will tell you, I'm going to give Julie a lot of credit, but also you should take some credit yourself. I think it's amazing if we think about what's happened, that whatever the pain of Creedence was, a band with some family intentions, that you have built the greatest family band imaginable, that you and your sons, the other night in Nashville, the whole band is great, but you dueling with your son is one of the greatest things I've ever seen. And the fact is, you've embraced your songs, you own your songs. Do you ever think that it is just it's like the Dylan lyric, you were so much older then, you're younger than that now? I think that helps explain how you do this to me.
You mean, I wish I didn't know now what I didn't know then?
Yeah. Or the Byrds, younger than yesterday. You are younger than yesterday. How amazing is that all to you now?
The I'm kind of dumbfounded, or maybe just kind of dumb. The way I feel is, because I do get to pause between, let's say, innings of baseball watching. I do get to pause, and it crosses, your mind how those things are. I feel very lucky. I feel like I'm the luckiest man in the world. Life is really great. I have a beautiful, wonderful wife that I stay with and lay down next to every single night and thank my lucky stars. I have a beautiful family of kids. The dogs are even great. And, I mean, in that way, I just feel blessed. And I guess what I'm trying to say is all the kind of career or business things seem to have slowly worked out. But the most important thing to me really is the family and how I feel in life. I think probably 35 or 40 years ago, I was, like a lot of people, if something went wrong, I would double it or triple it, and oh man, nothing right ever happens, that sort of thing. So I've lived through times being that kind of person. And I'm very grateful for how I feel now, which, a lot of things are going in my favor, but I also notice that you can kind of tell yourself to focus on what's good. I've heard some people call that counting your blessings, and just reside there and just tell yourself the other stuff is either not that important or it'll work itself out. But how you want to feel, which is how I feel, is that life is pretty doggone great, and seeing that your kids are really good people, and that your relationship with your partner is great. I mean, that's really all that really matters.
Well, it's absolutely. I know my wife is here, and I'm furious at her for not getting my publishing back yet. But you mentioning family, your daughter, I believe, when you played the Beacon for your 80th birthday, which was a big deal, I think you had been there a few weeks. Was it earlier or after, where your daughter
Before, yeah.
Your daughter graduated at the Beacon as well?
Yeah, Kelsey just graduated from NYU, and it turned out we didn't know any of this, but we had set up months ago that my 80th birthday would be at the Beacon, We knew Kelsey was going to graduate, but I didn't really know any of the detail. And suddenly, it turns out we were going to the same venue for 2 weeks apart, and she graduated there with her class, and I was so proud of that. I mean, it's just, you see, those are like that. That's such a wonderful dad moment with your baby girl, you know, to see her in the cap and gown and all that. And, you know, she's a COVID kid, meaning her last year of high school was COVID, and that really sucked. There was kind of not a real graduation celebration. We were lucky enough that she got a ceremony, you know, with everybody in masks and all that stuff. But then her first year at NYU was the same. It was sort of a lockdown thing, and you know, it didn't feel the same. So to finally be getting acknowledged and graduating, which just really felt great. I mean, they went, I think it was some extra miles to get there.
One thing about John that, you know, I talk to a lot of rock stars. I'm very lucky that way. Very few have John's core humility, and I thought about it today because I was talking to our mutual friend Brad Paisley, a guitar player who you always say beautiful things about, and he said to me today, he goes, "Does John Fogerty know he's John Fogerty?" Because it's like you talk about other guitar players, you talk about other artists. He wanted me to ask you, and I have a video which we can't show in this screen, but I'll show it to you later. But he basically asked, what is your secret? He goes, you have no idea how many bar bands have made a living off of the guitar genius of John Fogerty, the sort of the riffs, this incredible gift on guitar. And he goes, you never acknowledge how great you are you're not the guitar hero of you're not Eddie Van Halen. You're a different kind of guitar hero. He wanted you to discuss your approach to what makes a great guitar part.
Wow. Well, of course, Brad is one of my idols. Brad Paisley's just an amazing guitar player and a really amazing guy too. You know, I asked him for some pointers, and he went, you know, he did slow down a little bit, and he let me tape what he was doing. And so this is probably 8-10 years ago. Studiously, I listened just like I did when I was a kid, and was able to glean some of the stuff that he was doing, and it was very instructive, informative for me. Well, I think the way I approached guitar was I just loved it so much, even before the days of rock and roll, and that's how old I am. Hearing early or blues, rhythm and blues records and country records, probably in the early 50s, I seemed to sort of gravitate toward guitar. I know that the Grand Ole Opry was on television at some point in the 50s, and these people would come out in these really shiny costumes. A lot of people with cowboy stuff and hats and all that, and the girls all with sequins. And on black and white TV, it just set off all the lights and the cameras just freaking out. And they played these great big guitars. I mean, now I kind of know that's a Gibson J200 probably, big blonde guitar. And I was fascinated. And especially when rock and roll hit, I started paying attention to kind of what made me interested, why I was interested. I know that there was one pivotal moment in my life. I was about 10 years old. My family was up in Winters, California, which was near the Puda Creek that I later kind of turned into my song Green River. This music came on in this little general store. I think my dad was buying fishing tackle and bait and stuff. And this music came on that was fascinating. It was loud. And what is that? Turns out there was a jukebox in this general store. And I ran over and I looking at the thing go around, and I finally figured out what the number was. The song turned out to be My Baby Left Me by Elvis Presley. And right at that moment, his second big hit, I Want You, I Need You, I Love You, was out. And this was the other side, and I'd never heard it before. I stood there and listened to that, just the cacophony of the guitar. I didn't know the fella's name then. His name is Scotty Moore, of course. I made up my mind watching that and hearing that great guitar work. I don't know what that is, but that's what I want to do.
Well, you do it, and you do it so well. I'm going to ask one more question, and then I'm going to get to some of your great questions. But I did want to just say, I have this memory, and it's something I also admire so much about you. You have always give credit where credit is due. You've always spoken up for the people who influenced you. I thought about it. I flashed back to the 50th Grammys, maybe it was. Ken Ehrlich invited you to do a number coming down the road with two guys. I think it was Jerry Lee Lewis and was it Little Richard?
Yes.
And I think at one point we were trying, we thought maybe we'd get Fats Domino there. It turned out, I think for health reasons, he couldn't. But what's it mean to you? Because here you are, you always not only speak up for your influences. When we were in Nashville the other day, I was with my friend and our friend Chris Isaac, who said, when I began, John Fogerty basically went into the record company and said, if you can't sell this guy's record, you can't sell my record. So you always stand up for other artists. And at the Grammy Museum, I think we should thank you for that. But do you remember that? What was it like at that late date trying to get Jerry Lee Lewis and Little Richard together?
You want me to tell the true story?
Yes, yes.
Well, Ken Ehrlich was the producer of the Grammys
Executive
TV
producer.
show
He would
for
want me to
years
say
and years
executive
and years.
producer,
Yes, but he didn't warn me about any personalities or anything like that. And the setup was I was going to do Coming Down the Road and perhaps maybe Good Golly Miss Molly with Little Richard and Jerry Lee Lewis. And so we're in this rehearsal place. I don't know if Jerry Lee has showed up yet or not, but suddenly there's, I've got a few people, musicians for my band, waiting. I think Jerry Lee had at least his guitar player there, Kenny Lovelace, maybe some other folks. And suddenly there's a great, can I say, a great disturbance has come to the door, and the doors fly open, and then in walk, and they say, well, and suddenly all these musicians said, oh, here was the point. I was going to do a triple, I guess, singing with Little Richard and Jerry Lee Lewis. And we were going to do Coming Down the Road, or maybe I was doing that by myself. And then we were doing Good Golly Miss Molly, perhaps with the other two artists. But we were using my band. And the reason was that we had rehearsed those songs and knew how it would go. And that was clear as a bell. But Ken Ehrlich kind of threw me into the water and said, okay, now you got to swim in this. Because Little Richard came in the door with his band and a very big attitude about it. And so he sat down at the piano. Oh, God, he was great. And it was amazingly great. And his band is there. His sax player is, and they're just wailing away. And I know that suddenly I realized it's become my job,
to get these
my
guys
duty to explain to the fellas that, no, we're using my band because we've already got all the changes, and here's where you take it, here's, it was all, I guess it was being efficient or something. I don't even, maybe I can manifest, because I guess I did that day somehow. It got turned into the way the producers of the TV show wanted it, at least. And eventually it all turned out okay.
Absolutely. And I remember it very well because I got everyone, including those two, to sign my Grammy script that year, and I donated it to the museum, and I don't think they've ever put it out, so I'd like it back by the time I leave, along with parking validation. Okay, so here are the questions that some of you sent in, and the first one comes from, is this Logan Silver? Is Logan here? He is age 8. Logan, the front row, right here. Logan wants to know, John, what exactly does Chuglin mean? Logan.
How old are you? Actually, I think well, in the beginning, I felt I needed a fun to say word and fun to sing that would express energy and having fun and that sort of thing. And I, played around with different syllables and that sort of thing, and finally evolved because Chuglin wasn't an actual word. And what it really means is to feel good, to be happy. Um, Back in those times in the late '60s, there was another phrase people, you'd see it some places. It was called "Keep on trucking." I'm trucking. I'm trucking. And so Chuglin was kind of like that. You kind of glide along through life and be happy.
That's a great question at 8. You've already beaten my question, so congratulations, Logan. This was written by an adult. What's your favorite Taylor Swift song?
Taylor Swift? Oh, wow. There's a couple. I think my very favorite is Don't You Ever Grow Up? Oh, darling, don't you ever grow up? I think I like that the best. I used to sing that along with Kelsey when we were on our way to school. And I also really like the one all too soon, all too well.
All Too Well.
Yep.
Great one. This is from Jim. What was the genesis of your favorite lyrics? And you can say it's Proud Mary and we can move along, or if there's a different one. I'll tell you one I wonder about.
Okay.
While you're thinking. I was thinking that there's more wisdom in Fortunate Son. There's more political, social truth than you could watch cable TV for weeks and not get what you get in a few minutes of Fortunate Son.
Well, thank you. I actually, as a songwriter, I think I'm most proud, or I have most deep feeling about the song I wrote for my wife Julie, which is called "Joy of My Life," because that was literally words. Well, thank you. Those are words really from my conversation with Julie. I mean, that's actually I said many of those things right to her. I would always say, "I'm the luckiest man in the world," and I really meant it. I still mean it.
Well, I think we can't beat that as a last question. And I will say, John, I'm so glad you got to write love songs and have someone you can write love songs to. I'm so glad she helped you get back your songs, and I'm so thankful for your legacy and your legacy. So with that being said, let's hear John Fogerty.
Thank you all. Thank you.
John, thank you.